Let's look at a simple demo showing how violating the dependency inversion principle can cause problems in your application. In this example, we're going to look at a simple e-commerce application, which includes an order class that represents the customer's order. And the order class has a checkout method, which takes in a shopping cart. The shopping cart has some items in it that the user is purchasing. We have some payment details that will have values such as credit card or cash. And we have an option for whether or not we want to notify the customer when their order has checked out. If we look at the logic for this, we can see that when we have a credit card payment type, we're going to charge the card. In any event, we're going to reserve some inventory. And if the customer has requested it, we will notify the customer. As it stands here, we see that there are no explicit dependencies being set in the constructor for the order class, nor are there any implicit dependencies in this method that would be shown with a static method call or a new instance of a particular implementation. However, when we start to drill down into these methods that it's calling, for instance, notify customer, you can see that we do in fact have dependencies on mail message and SMTP client, datetime.now, which is a static method, as well as a logger static method for this error method here that they're using for error handling. Similarly, the inventory reservation method uses an inventory system that it instantiates, and charge card likewise uses a new payment gateway. So the dependencies in this class include the payment gateway, the inventory system, the SMTP client and mail message classes, the logger, as well as datetime.now. We'll be able to find a lot of these dependencies using the architecture generate dependency graph by class menu item in Visual Studio 2010, assuming that you have the correct version. And if you do that, you'll get something that looks similar to this, which will show you all of the class level dependencies. It won't show you the static methods. So you'll see here that we're depending on payment details, cart, logger, order item, etc. The only static method it's not showing is the datetime.now. Our logger method is in fact shown here. In fact, it's not going to show you anything that's in the framework. It's only going to show you classes that are defined within your project with the settings that I've used. So what's the problem here? The issue is that if we want to try and test the order class, it's going to be difficult to inject some of these classes that it requires. If we look at our test class, we have two tests written so far. We've named our class order checkout should, and that lets us use sort of a sentence structure when we say these tests. So we can say order checkout should not fail with no items, no notification, and no credit card. So we set it up with a new order, a new cart, payment details of cash, and we set the notify customer to false. When we run this, we don't have any real indication of success or failure except for the fact that we assume that if we didn't get an exception, it must have worked because our method is a void method. And so we can run this one test, and it does in fact pass when we have nothing to do and no items to do it with. The next one is that we don't want it to fail when we have no items, but we do have notification, and we still have no credit card. So at this point, we've set a customer email to this bogus someone@nowhere.com, and we specified should notify customer to true. When we run this test, however, we get an exception because I'm running this on my developer machine, and I don't actually have an SMTP server running. So if we view this test results, we'll see that it was a system.net web exception, unable to connect to the remote server, and it was unable to make a connection to port 25 of localhost when it tried to send the message. And if we look at the stack trace, you'll see that this is all SMTP client trying to send this mail message. So at that point, I'm pretty much stuck. I've got two options. I can come into my cart should method, and I can start doing things like creating a fake SMTP message. I can go into my order and I can say something like, if I'm in test mode, don't actually send my message. There's various hacks I can do to try and get around this. There's even a handy tool that you will maybe want to use sometime called SMTP for Dev that you can use. You can download this from Codeplex actually, and it'll sit there and listen on port 25 on your dev machine. And then if you go and run tests like this one, you'll see it flashes and shows you the message that you received. So here's my order details, for instance. And if you completely shut it down, minimize it, and rerun your test, it'll pop up a little toast message here that shows you that a message was received. So this will still let you test your emails with this particular thing. And similarly, if this was a database access, I could write some kind of a test database that I could use. If this were talking to my payment gateway supports some kind of, fake credentials that I can pass it that'll give me back some kind of data. There's all kinds of ways that I can do some sort of integration test that really does use the implementation that I expect to use in production. But having to put together and glue together all this infrastructure just to be able to test the logic of my order, to be able to say that, really I just want to know that when notify customer is true, that this notify customer method is called. I don't care about the details of it. I don't care if it's notifying them with an email or an SMS text, or if somebody's running down the hall to let them know that their cart happened to have been processed. I just care that when that flag is set, this method is called. And right now, because of the tight coupling of the order class to these dependencies, the mail message and the SMTP client, I have no way of testing that. And that's causing me a lot of pain when I want to be able to write some tests to show that this is really doing what I expect it to do.